But there must be a reason why we've decided to go or decided to pick democracy as the vehicle that we all want to.
That is exactly what I'm saying. I haven't picked a vehicle. A vehicle, for instance, you want to go to Kano to do a business. You enter Arik Air to Kano. It only takes you to the airport and you find your way and do the business. That's democracy. Democracy is a vehicle that takes you through the path to where you are going. But it's not the path itself. It's not the end of what you want to do itself. That's what I'm saying. So when we talk about rule of law, the rule of law does not allow people to rob the country. So when you are arrested and you are being questioned and you are shouting the rule of law, you should know that the citizens who you have robbed have a right to the rule of law. That is what we are saying. So the rule of law is not an end to itself. You are also subject to the rule of law. Government is subject to the rule of law. Political parties are subject to the rule of law. The citizens themselves are subject to the rule of law. So you don't rob people, steal billions of naira, and begin to shout rule of law and file all applications, all kinds of rubbish here and there. So what I'm trying to say is that we need to understand very clearly that we have a country whose problems are multiplying on a daily basis.
But as it stands currently, do you have any concerns in terms of how this war on corruption is being prosecuted?
I'm very happy with it because, number one, in this country, we start talking about body language. It has become part of our lexicon. The body language of the president is also clear. I won't take this trash from anyone again. So it's happening. Today, things are working. Like in Lekki, where I stay, for instance, for years and years, I kept buying diesel and buying all kinds of inverter here and there. But this morning, I woke up with light. Yesterday, I woke up with light. So those who are not doing the proper thing, so government can actually, motivate the people to greatness if the government is sincere. If the government, those who the government say, I'm so proud of the president. The president did answer in the United States that the reason why I have not chosen my cabinet is because before I chose people who will work with me, I want to put down rules and regulations for conducting government business. And that's the first thing the African Bar Association did. We wrote a letter to the president who was elected, and part of what we told the president is that there must be rules and regulations for conducting public business. A minister cannot sign a document that is above his means simply because he's connected. We need to stop this nonsense. It must be, the minister must abide by the rules and regulations of the civil service. A minister cannot overinflate contract and get away with it because it's politically connected.
But what people would have thought is that the rules and regulations should have been written before he was sworn in. I mean, the elections were fought in one way before he was sworn in. Don't you think that he should have prepared himself just before he was sworn in, these rules and regulations he was talking about?
Would that not have been premature itself? Because once you win an election, you need time to assimilate what's going on in the meantime. And you need time to also go through and think through these processes. There definitely would have been a lot of consultations here and there before the elections were won. But that doesn't translate to when the reality now comes to bear when you actually have won these elections. So what we're trying to say is that as people continue to talk, as you enter into office, you are not here because at the time you win, you are not getting more information about how these governments were running. So you are not able to look at some rules. For instance, we must know in this country the amount of vehicles the minister should ride. You can't be beating traffic and riding 30 vehicles simply because you are a minister. We need to know.
Talking about institutions, some other questions some Nigerians will also love to ask someone like you. We've seen political exposed persons, some of them have been tried and convicted, and the government went ahead to give such persons pardon. How does that translate into the fight on corruption for those that should have served as a deterrent?
Well, for me, I think that was a serious. The discretion was not properly exercised, because a country that is fighting corruption cannot be giving pardon to corrupt people. So that's the problems we have in this country, and that's what I would call cowardice. It's a big problem. It shows clearly that we don't even know what we are doing. The fight against corruption, like I said, is corruption, corruption, corruption. That's the agenda because it flows through everywhere. Perhaps channels, television, one of the greatest televisions in Africa, one of the greatest TV stations in Africa, by my own reckoning, my own opinion, is functioning because you have laid down rules and regulations and things are functioning. Go and check government television stations. Go and check government parastatals. What about the textile mills? In Edo State, where I come from, Bender State, the great Midwest State, then, we had different Asaba textile mill, Edo textile mill. They are all dead. It's corruption. That's where people will be working by now. But go back to the US, go to Ghana. I was in Tanzania the other day for the African Bar meeting in Dar es Salaam. I could still see Bata. I could still see companies of those days when we were growing up that are there. We killed our own for Michelin is not here. Dunlop is not, there's nothing. So we need to look at this thing very clear, very seriously. So whatever we are doing, we must understand that corruption is the reason why Nigeria is on its nails.
Should the government reverse the pardons that were granted?
Well, it's going to be difficult to do that. But unfortunately, some of these people are wanted abroad. They are wanted outside the shores of this country. That's what makes me laugh. If you pardon a person who cannot enter the UK, he cannot enter the US. In fact, if you commit a crime in Europe, you can't enter any European country. You can't even enter the US. I don't know what sense it makes. You know, so that's the first part of the problem.
In closing, very quickly here, are you hopeful that because this is just not the first time we have talked about fighting corruption, are you hopeful that we would be able to get some relative success in this fight?
Yes, we will get some relative success if we don't listen to the nuisance of a few people who want to remain in power. If we all join the government, I'm extremely proud of the NLC. Nigerians are talking. We need to get other countries, the NBA needs to join. We need to pay solidarity. We also need to speak out. Because the idea is to speak out. If the whole country comes in unison to challenge the government to say, look, we are tired of corruption. NSC picks up the gauntlet. Very soon, the African Bar is going to collaborate with the NSC. We need more of people talking. And then the country will hear.
So many Nigerians would love to know the path to ending all of this. We've always talked about having a very strong institution, and over the years some Nigerians have said, well, we went ahead building strong individuals to the extent that they have used their might to destroy the institutions that they would have been able to build for us as a people. How can we reverse the trend to the extent that the institution all by itself can fight off and starve off any kind of negative fight towards it?
Thank you very much. That's what I just said the president said in the US, and he said to us again in Nigeria. There must be a clear code of conduct for public officials who run the affairs of government. Once there is a clear code of conduct, and you cross that line, and as Minister of Education, or as Minister of Finance, or as Minister of Internal Affairs, and you are promptly arrested without interference from political parties, or from the president, or from powerful forces who are behind the president or behind the so-called political parties, and is publicly displayed, things will start falling into place. That's how to build institutions. I take, for instance, one of the things that annoyed me most, the Minister of Internal Affairs. Yesterday, I was happy to see at least we can see justice. We know today that part of the biggest problem this country has is unemployment. Here is a minister who collected 1,000 naira to 2,000 naira for the unemployed youths. And 19 people died. He contracted some people to go and do whatever they want to do just for 600 jobs, collected money from over 60,000 or so people. Or 600,000, but I can't remember the figure.
You're long.
And people, excuse me.
A moment, do you have any facts to that when you say he contracted that to people?
Well, I'm not in the Internal Affairs Ministry. What we rely on to deal with, to understand issues going on, is from the media. It's from you. The media reported that the minister. No, let me finish, sir.
We haven't reported that, have we?
No, I don't. I'm not. I'm talking about the media. I did not say channels.
No,
the media.
Because we have to be very
careful. What I'm saying is that what I know, because it was also out yesterday that this thing is being, and it is the same story right from time. Because at the time this thing happened, the Internal Affairs, the Immigration Authority said, look, we didn't contract the contractor that organized this event, this interview. It was a minister who contracted these people. I mean, I'm talking now from reports available to me. Or it's still ongoing, we are still hearing. I'm just giving you facts of what I know. Now, people died. That allegation was there. They collected money from unemployed youths, which is part of what the president said, refund back. At least we heard that from former President Jonathan. Refund back. Whether they've done that, we're hearing allegations that that was not done. But what I'm saying is, the minister remained in power. Whether you were not the one who controlled anything or not, as the supervising minister, you ought to have been punished for what has happened. 19 Nigerians there, unemployed, some pregnant, and you remain there. You can't build strong institutions that way. So that's part of what we are saying. When you do something wrong, you are properly checked. And then we can start talking about building strong institutions. The second way of building strong institutions is what I said. And the NLC has started it. We need to cry out. If you sit in your house and criticizing corruption, you can. That's the life.
It's crying out enough.
Yeah, no, it is. It's part of the process. You know, because if you don't cry out, people don't get to know what is going on. Then others can join you. That was the fight of Gani Fahimi. That's the fight of Mr. Femi Falana. That's the fight of so many other civil society leaders, you know, all over the years. And we need to now join and together as a country agree that corruption is not about Yoruba, corruption is not about Edo, corruption is not about Igbo. Corruption is corruption no matter how you look at it.
Good place for us to wrap it up, irrespective of your color, whatever it is corruption is corruption. Hannibal Wifo, many thanks for joining us. He's the President, Africa Bar Association, speaking on the fight against corruption.